So today I want to share some key differences between two bikes, those KTM Adv250 and Xpulse200. In all these 3 years, I have noticed some not so important, but based on my experience, I have observed these things in these two models. So first we'll come to build quality. Build quality means the moment you look at the product, it can be bike or it can be anything. First, what appeals to us is the paint. It can be of any color and how it is finished, and are there any rough burr marks or rough welding joints and peeled paint. These are all some key issues they have to address. Those manufacturers, they have to address before manufacturing. Once it is into market, within 2 to 3 months or within 6 months, if you observe the peeling of the paint, then you feel no, this quality is shit, and you are not ready to accept from anyone. Though it may be slightly cheaper, that particular model, but you can't expect that paint to be peeled off within 3 to 6 months. And it happens on some models, whatever the cheap models are there, like below 2 lakh or below 1.5 lakh models. It is very obvious because they can't provide with high-end paint quality. Then and you can see that paint peeling on the engine block fins and the chassis, and even on the side stand where you keep kicking that leg, kickstand. So there the paint gets peeled off. Now in build quality, KTM bikes are better than the Hero models. You take any model of the Hero. So those are all, they come under a budget of 1.5, 2 lakhs and within one. So there, the high-end quality we can't expect it. So overall build quality, KTM always stands for it, and it gives that premium feel in all the components. Switches, switch gear. Suppose if you are operating any switch, you feel some glitches at some point. If it is operating very smoothly, then it is absolutely good. There should not be any glitches. There's somewhere it gets stuck and somewhere it doesn't get connected. Those are all some issues, and especially cables. And if your clutch cable or throttle cable, if it gets cut within 5,000, 10,000 kilometers, then it's of no good quality. So these are all minor things what I have observed, and this is my personal opinion and experience which I am sharing with you. Yeah, that's what, that cable and wiring harness and the way they route it, and those mounting points and the mounting clamps, how they use. Is it very shabby or is it it's durable? It's the long run we will understand what could have been done to make it better, right? So that's the main point. See, when it comes to electronic components, practically KTM has got quality components. You take right from the switch gear and the fitments and the light fixtures or the wiring harness and the sensors or the actuators. They are of very premium quality, and I have never experienced any issue with the sensors or the actuators till now in 3 years. And even my son's bike is about 5.5 years old, and we have not faced any issues on that. Whereas in Xpulse, some wiring issues and the sensors. I have faced side stand sensor issue in the Xpulse, and I have faced throttle position sensor error, and because of that RPM was always high, beyond 2000. So loose connectors and faulty sensors. And one more thing is that gear position sensor in the Xpulse. It is not very precise. If you press the clutch, you will not see the gear position indicator. And if you leave the clutch completely, then only it will show which gear you are in. But whereas in KTM, suppose you are holding the clutch, you shift it to some gear, immediately you will see the indicator. Suppose from first to second, you are shifting, you are holding the clutch, it will show the second. From second to third, if you shift, it will show the third. But whereas in that, till you release the clutch completely, you will not see the gear position indicator in Xpulse. That is, like something I feel very retarded, very retarded display, I can say. And next comes the engine. For engine, there is a very significant difference in the compression ratio. This KTM Adventure is 12.5:1, that is 10.5:1 Xpulse. Okay. So here what happens when the compression ratio is high, when the piston is moving upward, then the piston is under little stress. You can't keep it pushing. The required force is little more. And at the low end, the piston will automatically hesitate to move upward. At lower RPM, what I'm saying, the moment you start the engine at the idling, it keeps struggling, the piston keeps struggling to move upward. But when it comes to, when it gains momentum, then it starts producing more power because of that high compression ratio. That when the expansion happens, the power stroke, then the sudden power is more. That power stroke, it pushes the piston down with much more force. So that is the advantage in the KTM at higher revolutions. So that is there. And at low RPM, it always struggles because the compression ratio, it is understood. Because there is a force required to move the piston upwards. Even if you work on some gear ratios or gearbox, but still the required force is more compared to low compression ratio. So that is, I think it's a very key difference in these two bikes, 10.5 and 12.5. See, almost about, say, 20% more. So that much power is expected in KTM, that much less power. But whereas, if you compare, if you are used to high revving and more aggressive riding, then you won't be disappointed. So you will enjoy the acceleration, and even after 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, that you can feel that rush of power. So that is the main advantage of high compression ratio in KTM. But there is always little disadvantage. It's not perfect. Then it is at low end, it is little sluggish. It hesitates. For Xpulse works better at low end because there is much less force is required to move the piston upward, and it keeps moving. As long as it keeps moving, it turns the wheel with a proper gear ratio, and slow, and that helps in the traffic or very when slow speed riding, and you don't have to keep changing the gears. Whereas in KTM, you have to shift down. Next is suspension, wheelbase, and the width. Suspension of the KTM is stiffer, which helps at high speeds. At low speed, you will feel that hard. That stiffer suspension, it works well with little luggage and the pillion. Either you have luggage with you in the touring or with the pillion, that is also fine. And that suspension, it works very well. It's like you will have a very smooth, comfortable ride. That is one advantage. And since it has got a longer wheelbase and the stability at high speed is good if the wheelbase is longer. Only the reason is when you are sitting, the front wheel and the rear wheel are little, at little more distance. The distance is more between the contact patch. So that is one advantage if we have a longer wheelbase, and it will have a very good stability at high speed because of the longer wheelbase. That is also one advantage. KTM has wider handlebar, about 2 inches, 2 inches is not less. Compared to this Xpulse, 50 mm more means your handles are slightly this side 1 inch and this side 1 inch. So from center of the wheel line vertically, the edge of the handlebar is longer. So the leverage is better if the handlebar is wider, and that helps in taking the turns at slow speeds. And suppose if you have encountered like loose sand or loose gravel or these stones, when the wheel is stuck, and if you have to turn it, then it has got very good leverage if the handlebar is wider, and that helps. And even at high speed, that is very stable, wider handlebar. That is one advantage. And due to stiffer suspension and that front heaviness of the KTM, at low speeds it becomes a little difficult. At low speeds, suppose you are taking a U-turn, and because of the longer turning radius and the wheelbase and that stiffer suspension, it becomes a little difficult taking U-turn at slow speeds. But you can take it, but it is a little difficult than the shorter handlebar or softer suspension. At high speed, either at certain RPM or certain speed, wobbling will not happen on KTM because that front end is heavy and the suspension is stiffer. But whereas when you consider this Xpulse, suspension is soft, and which helps at low speeds on rough roads, and it works well to some extent at high speeds. You will not feel so comfortable at high speed with a softer suspension, and it is not so stable. If the suspension is soft at high speed, it is not stable, and you will feel wobbling at some point. You will feel that handle wobbling or wheel wobbling at some point, because one is it is lighter and the suspension is smooth, or it can get certain RPM or it can get certain speed. Maybe between 4 to 5,000 RPM you may feel that little wobbling, and if you go above that RPM, again it will be stable. So all the Xpulses, because that front end is very light, softer suspension, you will definitely encounter wobbling at some point, either at some certain RPM or either at certain speed. And the advantage of shorter wheelbase of Xpulse, you can take tight turns. Turning radius is less, front end is very light, and that helps in slow riding and city riding. And overall maneuvering in the traffic, it is easier compared to the KTM. So stability, KTM is better at high speeds because of long wheelbase, more power at higher RPMs, and stiffer suspension is good at high speeds. Xpulse is better at low speeds because of short wheelbase and because of softer suspension in the city rides and on the off-road, because in the off-road you can't do 100 or 90 speed. So max, I think in off-road you should be able to do 30-40 speed. That's all. And maintenance wise, the Xpulse is 30% cheaper if you calculate yearly. But whereas you will be visiting more, you will be visiting your dealer or the garage more. KTM parts are durable and visits are less. So both are almost same now. Maintenance cost wise, both are almost same. At the end, when it comes to comfort, so that is the one thing. At the end of the day, you have to check your comfort level, how comfortable the bike is to ride and to maintain and to work around. It should be comfortable to ride, it should be comfortable to handle, it should be comfortable to maintain, it should be comfortable to work on it. So, and this is what I feel. So Xpulse is comfortable in city, short rides and on rough roads, and it could do long rides as long as if you are okay with moderate speed, and it is great for off roads because of softer suspension and bigger dia wheels in the front and shorter wheelbase. KTM is very comfortable with luggage and pillion. If you're a solo traveler, you will have luggage, that's also fine. And on highways at high speeds, it is great for touring and good for little off-roading, KTM. So overall, both the bikes have very distinct characters. Xpulse is different, 250 is different. Xpulse is more of off-road oriented. KTM Adventure is more of touring type. So, but whereas KTM can do little off-roading and Xpulse can do little touring, more off-roading. And it is lighter and it is about 20 kg heavier. Every bike is different and the experience on that particular bike is different from rider to rider and bike to bike. Now between same two bikes, you can't compare this bike to same, this bike to this bike. Though they are same model, they will not work in a similar way. That is there. Though they share similar components, there will be a slight difference always. And it depends on how you do the running in and your riding practices, how well you maintain. This all it helps in the long run.